Hello and welcome back to another episode. And today we are looking at the Aspire Revo. Yeah, this is a mini PC, not a thin client from Acer. And you can see you can almost make out all the glitter on the top of the case. So it's a very consumer design. It's a desktop PC, not much else to say. And this sort of is one of those weird hardware that interests me quite a lot. And the weird part is as you would have seen, it has an Nvidia Ion GPU. And in the power budget of such small hardware, it's very difficult to find something that has a dedicated GPU. So this does not only have an Nvidia GPU, unlike the Dell Wise 5010s. The GPU is not a part of the SoC and chipset collection that they usually put together. So this has an Intel Atom D525, so similar to the HP 510 that we looked at. But with that, the HP 510 just had the Intel Family Graphics 945GC, something like that. But this actually has a dedicated GPU. So we'll take a look at the GPU, we'll take a look at the hardware, we'll take a look at the performance, not just only on Linux, since there is Nvidia hardware in there. I am going to boot into Windows and show you guys a bunch of stuff. As far as I/O is concerned, we have one USB port over here. Our power button is over here, sort of, hidden. When you keep it like this, it's hidden right there. So Apple isn't the first one to make a mini PC with the power button that's misplaced. Um, but we have a USB 2 in this corner as well. So kind of a weird placement. SPDIF, SD card slot, headphone jack and mic. I think this is supposed to be IR, but it's covered, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on. And I'm not sure what's going on with this either. I think it's some sort of mounting mechanism that they had, and I never got the hardware for it. It is, again, as most of the things I own in this series, bought on in the second-hand market, so I have no clue about it. DC in 19 volts, VGA, HDMI, both can be used at once. I think gigabit Ethernet, and four more USB 2 ports. So that's about it in terms of hardware on the outside. Let's open it up. And as I said, bought in the second-hand market, it is just as bad in terms of how it is. And so you can just pull it up like that and it comes apart. All the um, uh, locks and things that are supposed to keep it in one place are broken. And so that's how it stays. Right, so this is the internal hardware. The more interesting part is you get a full size SATA SSD slot or SATA drive slot. The more interesting part is that it has a big fan on here, or a comparatively big fan, and a larger heatsink. And we'll take all of that apart and see what's underneath. But again, Intel D525, Intel Atom D525, not that hard to run. The HP 510 has a just a big heatsink and it works fine. I think I have another hardware with the similar Intel Atom chip and it works fine. It's just something that I am guessing the Nvidia chipset requires. Now, so the Nvidia GPU is just a GPU by itself. There is an Intel chipset that runs everything else underneath here. Because you can, like, when it's powered on and you take out the SSD, when it's turned off, immediately after you can feel it quite warm. So yeah, there are three different chips going on there, and so it's not an Nvidia chipset, although I have a Nvidia chipset hardware that I hope to show you guys someday. But this is just a separate Nvidia GPU. Right, so it has 4 gigs of memory, 2 gigabytes of DDR3 on each socket. This originally came with a GDDR3 memory stick. So as I was talking in a previous video, that I have a hardware that requires a specific type of DDR3 memory, and this is it. So this only takes in um, I think it's 2RX16 or 2RX8 sticks. Anything else doesn't work. So I had to specifically hunt these sticks out that are in this particular configuration, and you can add two of them to make 4 gigs of memory on the hardware. Right, so let's start taking it apart because I haven't done so in a long time. So I'm not sure what to expect. Like, one of the funny things is, this is what I kind of love about engineering. The PCB designer was obviously sure that there would be metal clips holding this in, and to ground them, the engineer actually added grounding areas there, so there's no masking on them. But like, because of cost, they ended up going with plastic the plastic clips, and now it doesn't really matter whether those are grounded or not. Yeah, and it's USB 2, so the signal integrity won't be affected. So that comes out like so. That's just a tiny module. This is the power button, and so this is where it pushes on the PCB, which is a very, very fine movement. I'll have to probably zoom in. Let's take out this heatsink fan assembly. Let's see how that is done. First of all, I'll take the wire out, and you have the Wi-Fi card here, so I'll have to take that out as well. So we'll take a look at that. And it's actually stuck to the main heatsink portion of it, so we'll take that out. So it's just, I'm not sure if I was even required to take that out, so I'll screw it back in. And I'll just take the entire, maybe there's a screw underneath, I haven't seen. Yeah, there's a screw underneath. All right, I had to take it out, that's fine. All right, this took a lot of effort to take out. Huh. Right, so it's finally out. I think it suctioned on these pads here. And I'm not even sure how good these pads are anymore, but I'll have to keep them. I don't have a proper set of pads, and they look quite good. Right, so something to note. We have dedicated GPU memory right there for the Nvidia GPU. So that's being fed directly from here. Okay, let's see the actual silicon. Let's take out these pads carefully, and hopefully we can maintain their integrity enough. There we go. Let's clean it up a bit. Right, so taking a look at the silicon, um, the top ones are Intel Atom processor, and that's evident because there's like nothing on it. We've never seen an Intel Atom so far that has any markings on it. Um, However, the one at the bottom is the Nvidia Ion. So it's GT218 Ion. I'm guessing it's built on the based on the GT200 series architecture. Not sure which exact one that was. So you can barely make out the um, Nvidia logo, and then it says GT218 Ion B1 quite clearly. So yeah, that's your Nvidia GPU for embedded or low power hardware, which is quite interesting to see. I don't think they've ever done something like this apart from, just embedded GPUs on Jetsons or Nvidia Switch, or sorry, Nintendo Switch or something like that. But apart from that, I think Ion was their only range for embedded GPUs. I'm not sure what the N-Force was, a chipset which had in embedded GPUs, but it wasn't quite the same thing. Let's take apart the rest of it. So heatsink design pretty simple. There's just one heat pipe that gets shared between both the chips, and then just solders onto thin aluminum heat fins. There's nothing to it. It's actually pretty bare bones. Hmm. I don't know if you even need it. Probably for the GPU, but for the CPU, probably not. Should be okay without it. But let's open the rest of it. Now, there might be something more interesting lurking beneath all of this, and we'll take a look. I think the chipset's down there. Apart from that, nothing else. Let's see. We have the base plate for the GPU for the heatsink. The ITE one is the, I think, the south-ish bridge, the second south bridge. I don't know what they are. They're used as South Bridge these days, but used to be like I/O controllers or some basic things back in the day, and that's what they're doing. This is the chipset. It has. All right. I don't think I'll be able to show it, but show the chipset itself. But this is the chipset, and it has from this angle it has a blob, but if you take a look at that angle, it actually has a metal slug stuck to it, and it's actually stuck pretty badly. So there's no way for me to rip that apart. It's actually stuck with some sort of epoxy glue or something to cool it. Not sure if this is the best way or they should have made an indent here, because this thing does get really really hot. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It gets hot. It has a weird unorthodox heat dissipation solution. It's just an epoxied metal slug onto a thermal transfer rubber. It's not even like thermal polish. This is rubber. Um, this is not a pad like you'd see on GPUs or NVMe SSDs these days. It's straight up rubber. Nothing else here, just a lot of power stages. You have your Realtek stuff for your audio, more power stages here. I don't know if you can make out what Wi-Fi card this is, but here you go if you want to take a look at the Wi-Fi card. Oh, Rawlink RT3090, that's a funny name. I want a RTX 3090. We have a 3090 at home. RTX 3090 at home. This is it. Can't afford much more. Right, let's put this back together and play some games and look at some benchmarks. Oop, it takes a second to actually. There you go. Right, we should have gone into the BIOS. Let's take a look at the BIOS first. So no UEFI, just old school regular BIOS. Intel Atom D 525 at 1.8 gigahertz, so not too different. A one HCI port, and just regular things, nothing. Can turn on off hyper threading. That's not out of the ordinary. Power management, and that's about it. Spectrum frequency control. That's it. There's no overclocking here. It's just enabled or disabled. That's it. You can see some stats. So CPU temps are 20, 21. Room temps. So about room temp, which is wow. And the rest of the system, I'm guessing that's the chipset, is at 27. Yeah, it's throwing the cold air out of the exhaust. So okay. It could very well be 20 to 21 degrees, given that the room right now might be at 20 or 19 degrees. Right. Let's move on to the Windows, and let's see about some games, some benchmarks, have some good time. So looks like we have audio, and I'll enable that audio. Hopefully that audio isn't too loud, so we'll reduce the audio from here. Oh, it's audio was working. Why is it showing the driver again? Okay. No, you won't install Windows 10 on this. Let's try The Simpsons. Yeah, loading screen in FPS is always interesting, but it won't be that high once the game starts. Let's resume game, and once the game starts, we'll take a look at what settings I have things at. So there's another thing with, even if sometimes games perform well, the loading times are just completely bogus because it's a very slow CPU. Even though it's an Intel GPU or whatever, it's an AMD GPU or whatever, it's paired with rest of the system being extremely slow, and it's kind of being held that it can address 4 gigs of memory because on the HP 50 HP 510, um, it couldn't, and so it was quite bogged down with just 2 gigs. Right, so it stays above 40, and that's what I've seen in most scenarios in this game, but it's also not running at a very high resolution. It feels a bit choppy, but that just might be the game itself. A lot of games from this era feel a bit slow, but that's just because the character movement, in my opinion, is slower. But no, it's smooth where it's supposed to be smooth. But the stutters you see, the 1% lows. I don't have 1% lows on the display, but the stutters you see is just CPU trying to feed the GPU, and sometimes when the data is required from the hard drive or something like this, it just bogs it down, and so it will keep running smoothly until something like that happens. Yeah, those stutters are there and they exist. Otherwise, it tries to stay above 40, and then sometimes right now it's like dipping down. Um, so it's running at 1280 by 1024. I don't think dropping the resolution would help that much. So we can try like 800 by 600, and I really don't think it'll help that much because I've tried it with some other games where it doesn't like just bump up the performance. Yep, see, it's about the same. It's just like the CPU has to, if the CPU has to work a bit lower, then it's fine because the GPU is not being loaded, just the CPU being bogged out. So the resolution doesn't do anything. The amount of VRAM there is plenty for this game to run at higher resolutions. But yeah, pairing that GPU, even though it is meant for um, low power devices, but pairing this with an Atom is probably a mistake. Maybe something like a Cell Round from back in the day would have made more sense. You can see at some places just rockets the FPS, but yeah, not here. And it'll just start to stutter a bit more. Right, moving on to another game. You can try Call of Duty. I think that's the first one.
All right, listen up. Private Martin, you're on the
Right, so as
obstacle
you can
course
see,
and doing weapons training
the
today.
resolution I've set it up
Before
is
starting
quite
the
low. You
obstacle
can
course,
barely make
read each of
out
these important
the what's
signs
written on the
and do what they
compass
tell you.
or what objectives are showing up. But the FPS seems to be a hard 60. Uh, But if I go ahead and improve the resolution, I again, I don't think it'll move much. It'll improve much. So let's go into that. And oh, it was already at. I thought it was at. Yeah. No. Okay. So that's the resolution. It has always been running at. But again, dropping the resolution on this game did not help back when I tried it. So right. So we're kind of just at 60. Just fine, running well. Yeah, I don't know where to go from here in this game for the time being. It tells me that I have to go somewhere specific. Anyway, so it's working well-ish. There are those one-person load dips that keep on happening, and those are irritating. But as far as smoothness itself, for somewhat extended period of time, it's okay. Stuck at 60, it's working well. It's logged at 60, I shouldn't say stuck, but game's running fine. Couldn't complain. Let's take a look at San Andreas now, GTA. Alright, so here we are running inside GTA San Andreas, and as you can see, even though the FPS numbers are fine, it is actually very tricky to run because it's stuttering quite a lot. Um, Walking in a straight line is fine, but as soon as I move my mouse around, it starts behaving weirdly. And that's one of the issues, as I said, of pairing this GPU with something like the Intel Atom D525. Dropping the resolution wouldn't help much, just will make look things much worse. So I won't do it. It's again, it's not a problem of resolution of or VRAM or anything like that. It just is a CPU issue. But here, yeah, running around, it's fine. It's somewhat playable. I probably wouldn't, run this game seriously on this hardware, but it is what it is. And like this hardware was never meant to run games like these. It was as an HTPC, so running Kodi or Windows Media Center or something like that. But we don't care about that. At least I don't. Right? Quit this game and try out CRYSIS. Right. So one problem with CRYSIS is it almost always runs like stutters at the beginning and then runs on sort of windowed mode at the background and then gets stuck. Blah blah. So had to figure. Took a while. Right. Single player and load game. And so this is like the very initial part of the game. I usually keep it saved because the cutscenes are quite too long. It's borderline playable. That's what I'd say. It's a 25, 24 cinematic FPS, obviously. Nothing less than cinematic for us. But yeah, it's not that good. It's still choppy. It's still in and out of like loading resources and rendering frames. Can't do it all. It's just a small tiny CPU. Let's stand beneath this. Oh, wait. Huh. It's funny how. Oh, you can kill it twice. You can break it twice, but can you break it once it's on the ground? Yep, alright. Fine. So many years of playing Crisis, and I thought you could only break it once. So the resolution is set to quite low. It's at I think 800 by 600. Let's see if we can improve on that. Let's go 720p, and let's see at least if 720p gaming is viable. Why is 720p? Oh, there you go. Right. No, it's bad. It's very it's sub 20. It's like at 15 FPS. This is not playable at 720p. So Crisis only running at 800 by 600. So there you go. Uh, let's go out of here. And one thing I wanted to show is the Nvidia control panel, where I couldn't figure out what GPU this is. Like, there's nothing that shows what GPU this is. Like Intel Atom D525, whatever, that's fine, right? But it just says Ion. It doesn't say NV8. Linux shows it as NV8. We know it's GT218 from the chip, but there's no indication what exact GPU this is on Windows side, which is funny. All right, let's shut down and boot into Linux. All right, so we are in Debian. Let's take a look at LSCPU, and then we'll quickly take a look at the results, which are interesting. All right, Intel D525, 1.8 gigahertz, double core, double thread per core. So that's it. GL Mark II, this is where it shows the GPU as NVA8 and not much else. So it is an Nvidia Ion. LSPCI, I'm not sure what that used to show. Yeah, GT218 Ion, but there's no place where in Windows where it showed GT218, so it was quite interesting. Because I'm thinking, if it's just an Ion, or if Ion was just one chip, like GT218 was Ion, and that's it. That's all the anything that says Nvidia Ion is this chip, or there were variants of Nvidia Ion, GT218, maybe something else, to 28 or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Let's see what graphics card this PTS detects it as. It is Nvidia NV8 512, so I didn't pick up on the GT218 bit, which is interesting. So Acer Aspire is the gray one, which overlaps a lot of the HP 510, I think, box. T505, not 510. So HP T505 came in at 66 FPS, but the Acer came in at 107, so not quite double, but it's there. Still being beaten out by the newer Bay Trail. I think it was Bay Trail based TC6764, and the older AMD Radeon based chips, and the Intel Atom in the Dell Y's 3040. But graphics improvement are there. Apart from that, Tiny Membench should be very similar to HP T505, and it is. It's quite very, very close. Um, GNU GMP bench is almost exactly the same as HPT 505. Again, it's the same CPU. X26 for video decode, it's again same as the HPT 505, very close. Darktable is a bit better because of memory. So HP has just 2 gigs. The Acer one has 4, and it's a bit better. Again, on all Darktable benchmarks, it's quite a bit better. Same here. Selenium for Aries 6. It's about the same. I thought the GPU and the memory will make a difference, but not as much. It's about the same. Um, Speedometer is also very close, so 11.6, 11.9. There's barely any difference between the two. So yeah, that's about it. That's it. Now for the Acer Aspire Revo 3700 or Acer Aspire R 3700, same thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Do subscribe for other mini PC things I have planned. There's still a few more left to go. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.